Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Combat Krav Maga, the podcast. This is episode 1. I'm so glad that you could join us today. And today I am very lucky to have one of my instructors, as well as a very, very interesting and dynamic young man. His name is Ryan. He is a Spartan racer. He is an athlete. He is a phenomenal instructor. He has different business ventures, and he is also an Ironman participant. So I'm very lucky to have him on my team. I'm also very lucky to have him here with us today. So Ryan, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered a lot of it, Joel, but pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I just want to just dive right into it. So what drew you to Combat Krav Maga?
To Combat Krav the studio or to Krav Maga in general?
Let's go in general.
So my first exposure to Krav Maga was a class that I had taken maybe 11 or 12 years ago. I was in Houston, Texas at the time. And growing up, I'd done Taekwondo, I'd done high school wrestling, I'd done a number of different martial arts, and I was always drawn to that, mostly because my father and I had a shared interest in self-defense and in martial arts. One of my favorite memories is when he took me to see, when I was about 10 years old, a Jet Li movie called Hero. And the sword fighting and the martial arts in that, I think, deeply ingrained a great deal of enthusiasm there. But the Krav experience had started in 2014 when I had taken one class at a studio in Houston where I was living at the time. I knew as soon as I did that this is really interesting to me. The pragmatism, the accessibility of the new techniques, how easy it is to be able to chain different things together rather than trying to learn a bunch of different sort of prefix techniques or katas or something else like that. I was very drawn to that. But I had moved out of Houston and I lived in New York and Austin and San Francisco and DC and many different places. And it wasn't really until I moved back to San Francisco after COVID had kind of settled down that I found Combat Krav. And by that time I'd done, a couple years of Muay Thai and BJJ, but I knew that I really wanted to get back into Krav Maga. And when I moved into my place in San Carlos, part of the reason why I moved there was because Combat Krav had a location in San Carlos on Google Maps. So I was like, oh, then I can move here. And then I got the Krav down the road. But then it was closed as soon as I moved in. So I felt gypped. But that's when I reached out to you guys and you put me in touch with Eric, and the rest is history from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big shout out to Eric Halden. He is very, very quintessential, one of my other instructors that is doing a phenomenal job down in the San Carlos area, and I'm going to have him on as a guest as well, so we can kind of bring all of this together. So if you had any advice for someone that was coming to you and said, hey, I really need something that'll work for me, I'm trying to get in shape, or I'm really worried about being bullied or something like that, what advice would you give them, and why would we be the answer?
When I was a kid, I was actually kind of small for my age, and I was like barely 5 foot, 95 pounds, soaking wet when I was a freshman in high school. So when I was in middle school and I was in grade school, I was kind of picked on a lot for my size and stature. And, I'm like 5'10" now, normal height, but so I caught up eventually. But at the time, it kind of sucked. And I had been taught for a while up to that point from, like teachers and different folks, like, oh, if someone bullies you, like, you go get a teacher, you go get an adult. And that was all well and good on paper, but never really resolved the problem, because that just taught the bully in this case that they could just pick on me with pretty low consequences. But it wasn't until my stepfather actually had sat me down as well. My dad had told me the same thing. So hearing this twice from different sources, it said, listen, yes, you go get a teacher. Yes, you go talk to an adult. But if they keep doing it, and if you've asked them nicely to stop, just punch them in the gut. Just real quick, just real one hit. And then then they'll stop. And I was like, really? They're like, yes. And I'm like, you're giving me permission to, and this is like, tiny kid. And they're like, yeah, see what happens. And lo and behold, at the water fountain the next day, that's exactly what happened. Same guy, came up, was bullying me, was like, giving me a hard time. asked him to stop. He didn't. I turned around, quick strike to the gut, and he never bothered me again after that. So there have been a number of students actually that have come by the studio. And these are like young kids. These are kids like 10 or 11 or 12, some of whom are smaller in stature for their size and their age. And I kind of see myself in them a little bit because they're younger. They may have been like told to avoid violence, or that violence is something that should be avoided at all costs. And they're getting these conflicting messages. And yet the folks that tend to pick on them or that make their lives difficult don't seem to abide by those same rules. So what I love about Krav, to get to your question, as a mechanism for this, is beyond just a great way to stay in shape. Krav, you gave me this a while ago, Joel. You had called it, was it disciplined undisciplined or undisciplined discipline?
Undisciplined discipline.
Undisciplined discipline.
Yes.
And its relation to this is if you were to tell someone like just get out there and fight back, and then they just go frickin' crazy, then that's not helping anybody. If you just let them out like a wild animal, then they're going to get hurt. Someone else is going to get hurt. The situation is going to escalate way out of control beyond where it should. And the same is true for kids in grade school, and the same is true for adults in street fights. Where Krav comes into play is we exercise a tremendous amount of control when we are practicing these techniques, because they are designed to be so lethal. And you want your training partner to keep practicing with you, right? You don't want to break their nose, and you don't want to like elbow them straight in the throat. Doesn't end well. I've been hitting the nuts too many times to, to not take this seriously. But
yep. I think all of our instructors have taken one to the nads a couple of times. So
absolutely.
Absolutely.
But because of that, it requires channeling that rage or that more sort of primal nature into a great deal of control over these reactions. And in doing so, you actually get a much better handle on your own ability to actually respond in situations like that, whether by surprise and sort of a panic, or when confronting somebody who is giving you a hard time. I find that to be tremendously helpful, both to myself as I am now, and then to like the 10-year-old me. And this is something that I would want to have taught him as a father, for sure.
Absolutely. Very, very cool. Okay, cool. So, my upbringing was pretty much the same, with my dad being in law enforcement, and then my uncle being in law enforcement. And then, I had lots of other different iterations of my family that were in law enforcement in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And then my time in the military, just, it all bleeds together. But you made a very, very important point, that it's important for people to understand that what we do is not just violence for violence sake.
Right.
But it's also not something that we're going to submit somebody and tap somebody out. We are going to take care of business. We're going to make ourselves safe, get home quickly. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we want to try to train our students and our recruits and the families that come here to live with confidence, to know that they are supported in a community and be part of our tribe here to be supported in that community. So let's kind of turn into that. Since you are coming to the community brand new and you weren't part of the echelon to begin with as far as creating Krav Maga, but you're definitely part of the legacy now. What are your thoughts on the creation of a tribe and a community here?
In my experience, frankly, like, you tend to build a community with folks that you've gone through struggle with in some way, especially physically. That tends to bind people together quite a lot. And honestly, there's like almost no faster way to be friends with someone than to actually just like be sparring with them, get in the ring, get a couple licks in, and then there's some sort of weird anthropological or evolutionary component to that I'm not educated enough on the subject to be able to opine. But you can definitely feel as palpable when, as you're engaging, as you're practicing, as you're training with each other, there's a sort of a closeness that is built that is not built upon some sort of like a shared career or like we come from the same background or anything like that. The fact that we're all here, we're all trying to better ourselves, we're all trying to to gain the ability to just walk in peace, to, have such confidence in our abilities that we never have to use them. That there's some sort of a tribe that emerges from that in sort of a natural way. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about your instruction style, Joel, and the way that you run the studio is there are, and we know who these are. There are like a number of people that will come into the studio that come in with sort of the wrong intentions. Like we talked at the start about how this can be a useful tool for harnessing that rage or for harnessing those energies and for using violence as a deterrent. But then there are folks who hear about Krav Maga and hear about its lethality or something trumped up in some piece of media, and then say, "Oh, I want to learn how to kick people's ass," or I want to learn how to hurt people. And you can kind of sense that pretty quick in the first class with somebody who's coming in. And you do a very good job of sort of taking those people aside and giving them sort of a bit of an educational discussion on this to sort of get them on the right path. But sometimes those people just aren't listening. They don't want to be told, this is not a recipe for you to go out and then become a superhero. And that is not the intention here.
I'm not here to train you to be Batman.
Exactly. So I like that you're selective in that you give people the opportunity to sort of change their path. But if they just want to come in and they want to train themselves up to be Batman for some sort of power fantasy, then that's not the culture and that's not the tribe that you're trying to create.
Yeah, I absolutely. I appreciate you saying that because that's exactly what we're standing for. That's why we have families coming here. That's why we have kids coming here. We have people of all race, creeds, colors, sexual orientation that come here because they need to be part of a bigger thing, that they feel heard, that they know that they have an option to be able to say, hey, I don't want you doing that to me. Hey, back off. And they know how to mean it. But they're not doing it in such a manner to where that person is going to end up being more violent towards them because they are standing up to them.
Yeah.
It's going to be more of a de-escalation until it's time for me no longer to de-escalate.
Exactly.
It's time for me to do something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you could tell anybody listening what is the one thing that they should look forward to coming to us, what do you think that is?
Combat Krav is incredibly attentive to newcomers, and we have a lot of we have varying degrees of experience in the membership. We have one thing that we have in common is that everybody, regardless of whether they're level 1, level 2, or grad level 3, seems to be very, very good at bringing new people in, getting them to feel comfortable, and then doing a very good job with them in sparring. I've noticed actually in the past several weeks with a lot of the more experienced folks that when I'm going around to see how, say, first-timers or like people who are on their second or third class are doing with palm strikes or chokes or anything like that, their training partners are actually giving them tips as they're doing it. They're saying, like, that's interesting. What if you were to throw this in there as well? And sort of guiding them in a positive way in their own training. And that makes our lives a lot easier as instructors because, we don't have to like jump around to 7 or 8 different pairs to provide color comment. People are able to provide a little bit of direction to the newcomers, and that actually elevates the experience for everybody. So in comparison to what we kind of describe as like McDojos that are going to come in, are going to try to like give you the whole rundown of like, the world out there is really fucking scary. And if you don't like sign up right now and get this, get this package, then you're going to be mugged on your way back to the car, trying to use these scare tactics to frighten the newcomers into paying for fear of their own safety. Combat Krav is not really about that at all. Like it's very clearly like, hey, we're all here, we're all interested in learning this for our own reasons, but we have that shared tribe that is evident as soon as you walk in the studio, and that I think is very good thing for newcomers to see.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. So one of the reasons we put this podcast together was not only just to bring in guests to have a chat about stuff like that. We definitely want to keep it out in the forefront of everyone's mind as far as what questions do you have, what topics would you like us to cover, because I can cover pretty much any topic that you would like me to, and if I don't have an opinion about it or something that I can do with it, I can absolutely find someone on my team that can. I have my knife instructor who is originally from Russia, is well versed in combat psychology. Then we have our veterans here, myself and Robert and John here, and then we have our younger crowd as far as our instructors, which are you, Ryan, Eric for sure, and then Justin and Tim and some of our other new ladies that are coming on board. And I want to shout out to the women that are stepping up to bolster our female cadre of instructors. So we are constantly looking to refresh our instructor base to prove to the community that we are what we say we are. That we're not just here to, hey, look at my cool new trophy. Hey, look at my cool new belt. We're not doing that. And that's something that I'm very proud of here. And none of my students, and Ryan, you can kind of chime in here as well, none of our students are all about the, well, I'm a level 3 or I'm a level 4. You're just a level 1. I have never in my entire 2.5 years at this location and my 45 years of teaching my style that I have never heard any of my students ever say that.
Yeah, ego doesn't really play well, frankly, like in our studio. That kind of, that gets filtered out to an extent with the same class of folks who come in who want to learn how to be Batman. There's these belt seekers, and I fully admit, like when I was young and I was in Taekwondo, like that was that was what I was doing. You get a belt, we had little stripes as well that would mark a sort of intermediate progression in the belt colors. And for me, like as a kid, I was accustomed to that sort of like external validation of progress in what it was that I was doing. But I kind of needed that, I guess, as a kid at the time to know that I was doing well and that I was proceeding. In the case of Krav, technically, like depending on the affiliation, like there's belt systems or whatever, but we don't really have that sort of thing. We don't really dress up if for cosplay. It's just like your progression is at your own pace. And Joel, you got a really good eye and personalized feedback for everybody on how they are doing as they're going from level 1 to level 2, level 3 to level 4. And it's not as though there's some sort of preset, like, oh, you do this for 2 months and then you're going to be at this level. You do this for 6 months, you're going to be at this level. It doesn't really work that way. And I've never asked. I don't intend to. I'm just like, I need to spend more time practicing this until I have it down for my own sake. Not because I'm looking for some external validation, but because this is what I'm doing just for my own peace of mind. And if then I qualify for a level after that because I've mastered these techniques, but I'm not doing it because I'm seeking some number or some certification that I can put up on my wall. And I think that attitude is quite prevalent throughout the rest of the studio.
Awesome. Great. Perfect. Any parting words for anyone listening or anybody that they forward this to?
Just that I know that combat sports in general can seem very intimidating and obviously like very male-coded, but one of the things that I consistently hear about our operation at Combat Krav and just Joel's teaching style in general as well is the accessibility, especially to women, but to women and then to the LGBT community as well in San Francisco. The techniques in Krav are designed specifically to be able to exert maximum leverage with minimal effort. So you could have like a 300-pound tank like Tim as your training partner, and still be able to cavalier him to the ground with wrist manipulation if you're like a 115-pound girl. And we've seen this actually like several times, and it's kind of fun to like pair up these different body types in class. But that's the whole thing, and that's why it's fun to like swap partners like as you're doing that, because you demonstrate consistently to the newcomers and to the experienced folks that are sort of questioning like, well, I wouldn't be able to pull that off because I'm very small and my attacker is almost always going to be bigger than me. It's like, yes, probably. That will probably be the case that they will be bigger than you. But that is exactly why this set of techniques will work. And that's what I particularly love about Krav in comparison to other martial arts. Because with the other disciplines, which I do love, there is the presumption that the other person is operating on the same rules as you. That you are in a ring, that there are certain techniques that are out of bounds, that are illegal. But if you're doing this in order to get greater peace of mind for how to carry yourself as you're just walking down the street, or if you are, usually a target of that kind of harassment, then your attackers are not going to be observing those same rules. And you need to have every advantage that you can get. And the techniques that we teach at Krav are highly attuned to precisely that. And then the culture on top of that Joel has been able to accrete with the women's focus seminars, with the Survivor series is just second to none. So that's the only thing that I would add.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And thanks for your time today. I just want to let everybody know that in the notes below, you'll find our website. Just to give it to you out loud, it is www.combat-crav.com. You can also reach out to us at 650-609-8118, 24 hours a day. Don't be surprised if someone answers the phone. That's real, because we are very well attuned to our community. And last but not least, our address, 1455 Bush Street, in between Van Ness and Polk here in San Francisco. And as we always say here, train hard, fight harder, go home alive, and absolutely at every given time, live with confidence. Thank you for your time. My name's Joel Brown. I am the chief instructor and sensei at Combat Krav Maga San Francisco. Have an awesome day. Kita.
Kita.